Welcome back to Joe's Math Tools, where math is made easy. In this session, we're calculating the sum of our mixed fractions with unlike denominators when we're using cross multiplication. And if you're ready to see how to use this method with your mixed fractions, let's get started. So today, as we are calculating the sum of our mixed fraction using our cross multiplication method, or what you typically know as the butterfly method, let's begin by first adding up our whole numbers. So we're going to get those two whole numbers out of the way before we begin calculating with our fractional parts. So we add 4 plus 2, which is equal to 6. And we're going to leave our 6 here for now and just focus on our fractions. And then at the end, we will come back and combine our answers together. Okay, so let's work with our fractions. So we have 2/3 being added to 5/6. And with our butterfly method, or our cross multiplication as it is called, we'll be multiplying our numerator of 2 to our denominator of 6 in the next fraction. So we multiply 2 times 6, which is equal to 12. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with our other side of our fraction where we multiply our denominator of 3 times our numerator of 5. So we have 5 times 3, which is equal to 15. And then to finish off our working, we are now going to multiply our two digits in our denominators together. So we multiply 3 times 6, which is equal to 18. Now, once we are done with our multiplication, we are now going to begin putting our fractions together so that we can begin with our final phase. So the first thing we're going to do is identify our denominator. So the numbers that we multiply at the bottom, which is 3 and 6, which gave us 18. 18 will become the new denominator for both of our fractions. Now, once we have identified and placed in our denominator, let's start with our first fraction. So we multiply 6 times 2 in the first fraction, which gave us 12. Our 12 will become the numerator of our first fraction. And for our second fraction, the 15 that we got for our product will become the numerator of our second fraction. So remember that as you work through these questions and you further develop your skills, a lot of the working that I'm showing you, as always, you won't need to include in your work because you will become better mathematicians and you won't need to include all of the extra calculations that I did. So let's begin to sum our numbers. So we're adding 12 and 15, which will give us 27. And our 27 remains over our denominator of 18. So now what I'm going to do first is simplify my fraction first, and then I will go into the next phase of converting this fraction back into its mixed fraction form. So let's begin by simplifying our fraction. So I have, and I'm going to simplify it on the side so that I can save a little bit of space where my working is. So we have 27 18s, and I'm going to reduce this fraction by dividing both of my numbers by 9. So we have 27 divided by 9 will equal to 3, and 18 divided by 9 gives us the difference of 2. So I'm going to just plug that back in so that we can keep track of our working as we move through. So we have 3 halves now as our solution. Now, our next step is, because we now are working with an improper fraction, let's convert that fraction back into its mixed fraction form. And then at this phase, we'll begin to wrap up our working. So I'm going to now be dividing my 2 into 3 to get my mixed fraction. So 2 divides into 3 once. 1 times 2 will equal to 2, and 3 minus 2 gives us a difference of 1. So my mixed fraction will be 1 and 1/2. Okay, so let's plug in our 1 and 1/2. Now remember that we have this 1 and 1/2, which is not our final solution. So we do have our 1 and 1/2. I'm going to trail that up here. So we have our 1 and 1/2, which is the answer that we got from our fractional part. Now remember that in our earlier working, we also had our whole number of 6 that we summed earlier within our question. So now we're going to take that 1 and 1/2, which is the answer from my fractional part of my question, and the whole number which we got from adding the two whole numbers of 4 and 6 together, and we're now going to combine or add those two numbers together to get our final solution. So we're going to add our whole numbers of 1 and 6, which will equal to 7, and then we return a half back to our question. And there you have it. We just summed our mixed fraction by using our cross multiplication or our butterfly method. And in this one, we had to do a little bit of regrouping, which is not too common to a lot of students because some of these questions we don't tend to cross as much. But this is also a good question that helps to test a lot of your skills when it comes to fraction. It tests your ability to multiply or use the cross multiplication method. It tests your ability to simplify fraction, to convert your improper fraction back into its mixed fraction form. And then finally, what do you do when you have a fraction that involves regrouping? So a lot of your fractional skills are tested within this question. But as always, remember that you do need to get some additional practice in so that when you're faced with questions like this, you are able to solve it without any hiccups. And I'll see you right here in the next video with more fraction skills on Jules Math Tools, where the aim is always to make math easy.